Good luck.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am David Vitale, President of the Chicago Board of Education. On behalf of my fellow members, I welcome you to today's Chicago Board of Education meeting. Today is October 22nd, 2014, and we are holding this month's meeting here at the Board Chambers at 125 South Clark. At this point, I'd like to say a couple of things before we move into the formal part of the meeting. First, I know I speak on behalf of all of my fellow board members in wishing President Lewis of the Chicago Teachers Union a full and speedy recovery. Amen to everything. Okay? You should know that I know Barbara, maybe some of our other board members as well, but at least Barbara and I have been in communication with President Lewis, with Karen. And I should tell you, she has absolutely not lost her sense of humor. And I think I heard Vice President Sharkey, either I read somewhere or heard him on the radio or on TV or something, say that she's as feisty as ever. And I want to guarantee you that I will confirm Vice President Sharkey's observation. Karen continues to be as feisty as ever. So that's the good news, at least in my communications with her. And I think we do wish her a very speedy recovery. We miss her and hope she will be back with us soon. And I wanted to say that publicly on behalf of all the fellow board members. I don't know, Barbara, if you want to add anything to that, but it's been good to hear from her and on a fairly regular basis, and know that she's the same Karen, and we appreciate Karen.
President Vitale, I concur. She is feisty. We've had good conversations, and I, with the entire staff from CPS, do, and I've said this to Karen, wish she and her husband John and her entire family, keep them all in prayer, and I look forward to working with Karen again really, really soon. Thank you.
Also, I'd like to point out that annually the board has done a self-evaluation of its activity and its process and how we go about doing our business. And over the years, as a result of that self-evaluation, we have made changes. I'll point to a couple. We have obviously, we instituted office hours so that the public could have greater access in smaller groups to meet with board members to talk more in depth about issues that are on their mind. We changed the sign-up procedure for attendance at these meetings and participation at these meetings, so that because we listened and heard that people didn't like getting here at ridiculous hours of the morning and standing in line, to make it a little bit more convenient. About a year ago or so, I guess a little bit less than that now, when we did our last evaluation, we also were listening to the public, and we heard people saying that, you know, it should be more convenient for people to come to these meetings. And so we made a determination to work on actually moving our meetings out into the community and changing the time to make it more convenient for people to attend these meetings. So I want to tell you that today, and Estella, our secretary, will give you more detail later, that we actually will move our November meeting out to Westinghouse High School in November, and we will move it to later in the day so that parents and others will have the opportunity, if they work all day, to actually be able to come to the meeting. And you know, it's taken a fair amount of planning to make this happen. It sounds simple, but it gets actually a bit more complicated than that. So we've been working on this for a while, and I'm glad to say that we finally going to try to make it work well, and if it does work well, it's a practice that we will continue at least hopefully a couple of times a year, if not more, to bring it out to the community. So I wanted you to know that, and as I said, Estella will give you the details on that a little bit later in the meeting. So with that, let's see, where are we? Madam Secretary, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Yes, Mr. President. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The regular meeting of Wednesday, October 22nd, 2014 is hereby called to order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dr. Beenan.
Here.
Dr. Hines.
Here.
Vice President Reese.
Here.
Member Zapp.
Here.
Dr. Escoitia.
Present.
Member Quazzo.
Here.
President Vitale.
Here.
I would also like to recognize our Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Barbara Byrd Bennett, our General Counsel, Mr. James Bebley, and the 2014-2015 Honorary Student Board Member, Angel Diaz. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. As Estella has already pointed out, we have selected a new honorary student board member, and I'm pleased to say that Vice President Reese participated in the selection process, so I'm going to ask Jesse to introduce our new student board member.
Thank you, David. Very happy to present you all Angel Diaz, a student at Curry High School. And we met first when Angel was participating in Barbara's Student Advisory Council earlier this year. And then I had the pleasure of being out at Curry a few weeks ago. And once again, Angel was very proactive in seeking me out and letting me know that he had applied for this position, and how interested he was in sitting here, and that he had observed prior board meetings, and I was quite surprised that he would go out of his way to come to our meetings in the past. But he is very interested in the work of the school board. He hopes to, in the future, study education law. James, so put him on your recruiting list in about 15 years. So we're happy to have Angel here today. And Angel, if you'd like to share a few thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. My name is Angel Diaz, and I graduated from Orozco Elementary School, and I'm currently a senior at Cary High School. I wish to say a warm hello to all the members of the Board of Education, CEO Barbara Byrd Bennett, and General Counsel James Bebley. Thank you so much for the honor of being selected as the 2014 and 2015 Honorary Student Board Member. I promise to do my best in this service by advocating for student voice, work to improve community involvement, and to continue to look for ways so that I can help our district. Throughout the years, I have developed a strong leadership personality and voice, especially while I served on Barbara Byrd Bennett's Student Advisory Council, representing the 400,000 students in CPS. I also served as Cary High School Local School Council Student Representative and President of the Chicago District Association of Student Councils. My personal goals as Honorary Student Board Member are to increase the numbers of schools with restorative justice programs, advocate for safer communities, and help inform policies with students' input. I also want to improve my leadership skills so that in the future I can study policy making, law, and the education system in hopes of becoming an educational lawyer. One day I hope to hold a public office so I can continue to be a public servant of my city and community. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you, Angel, and we're really pleased to have you join us. And James, I spent a little time with Angel this morning, and I don't think you need to worry about hiring him. I think you need to worry about your job.
I got my eye on you, Buster.
Okay. All right, let's move on with honoring excellence, and we have the great opportunity to hear about Hispanic Heritage Month essay winners. Barbara?
Yeah, thank you very much, President Vitale and members of the board. Over the last several weeks, our schools have embraced the celebration of National Hispanic Heritage Month. In classrooms and through musical performances and cultural events, we have honored the countless contributions of Latinos to history, literature, and the arts. The events coincided with a statewide essay contest run by the Hispanic Heritage Organization, where students were asked to write as a composition answering the question, how can Latinos be more involved in the betterment of their communities? About 750 students from across Illinois submitted essays this year, and I'm proud to say that 6 CPS students were among the state winners. Our students wrote about their families and how their commitment to community has inspired a new generation to improve the quality of their neighborhoods and to support the underprivileged. Education has the power to change lives, and by staying in school and engaged in the classroom, these students know they are working toward a meaningful career and an opportunity to give back to their communities. I commend our students for their extraordinary effort in their essays and for representing us so very well at the state level. The winning students in attendance this morning are Hugo Blancas from Greeley Elementary School, and I believe the principal is also here with him. Ruth Lopez from Pierce School of International Studies. Ernesto Ortiz from Washington Elementary School. Adhili Gonzalez from Whitney Young, and William Moreno from Davis Elementary School. Parents and teachers and principals and family members are here with our students, and I would like to invite our students to say a few words, starting with Hugo.
I'd like to thank for the opportunity to actually win this achievement for the Hispanic heritage. I will.
I think this is a really important thing for the Latinos, especially for us, that to help the Latino communities. And I think that they choose me as a winning student, and thanks.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's truly an honor to be here today with the CPS Board of Education, and I'd like to thank Dr. Barbara Bennett for choosing me as one of the 6 winners, and I do believe I worked very hard on my essay to get here, and I think this is brightly going to increase my future.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I think that, well, I want to say thank you for having me here. I think it was a great opportunity to be here. I also want to thank the organization, the Hispanic Heritage Organization, for actually having this opportunity for us and helping us, kind of like taking us in our way for a better future, giving us opportunity to express what we think about the Latino, how we can help, and I hope they put it in good use, our words. And, well, thank you for having us here.
I'm happy to be here because I tried really hard on the contest to win, and I actually won. Thank you.
If the principal or the teachers or any of the family members would like to say anything, we welcome you to do so.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'm the principal at Greeley Elementary School. Just really proud of the students, the future of our city, and really grateful to have the opportunity that our student, Hugo Blancas, has. He's a fine young man to represent our school well. We hope that Their ideas really do take root and make a positive difference in our city. Thank you to the board, Dr. Bird Bennett, for inviting us.
Good morning. I'm Nancy Mendez. I'm the principal of Helen C. Pierce School of International Studies, and we are extremely proud to be here and to have Ruth really express herself and how she feels about the Hispanic community here in Chicago. And so, as an international baccalaureate student, she has really done well in the program, and we look forward to having more students participate in things like this in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nancy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just want to thank the board and also the teachers. They really made a difference, and thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Well, congratulations to all of you, and thank you for coming down and joining us today. And we really appreciate the efforts that you all put, and I know you put hard work into this, these essays, and you obviously were successful in competing against a broad range of others who actually made an effort. So congratulations to all of you, and good luck. Thanks.
Just one thing. I would just like to say one very important thing. I think this essay contest emphasizes the importance of cultural heritage and identity, and it creates a bond between the students and their communities. And so I congratulate all the students, the teachers, the families, and the principals. And of course, my son, the principal at Greeley School. We are a CPS family, and I continue the legacy from this angle, and he's at the community level. Thanks to all of you.
We're going to turn to, okay, thank you. We're now going to turn to the business portion of the meeting, and I'm going to turn it over to Barbara.
Thank you again, President Vitale and members of the Board of Education. Our district is deeply committed to the Common Core state standards. We've been implementing Common Core state standards with success now for 3 full years, and point to recent achievement gains in NWEA, especially in literacy, as evidence that our professional development efforts are working. We have more work to do, but we are pleased with the progress thus far. I've been disappointed by arguments advanced that declared by opponents of Common Core state standards who express their concerns and coincide the Common Core state standards with standardized testing based on standards. While CPS continues to implement the Common Core state standards, I have concerns about the new assessment that is being scheduled to be rolled out in the spring to measure our progress against those standards. The new test, the Partnership for Assessment of Readiness for College and Careers, or PARC, is that over which I have concern. I want the board and our community to know that I've been in communication with the Illinois State Board of Education, and I have engaged in conversation with the U.S. Department of Education and will continue to do so over the next several weeks to discuss the possibility and the logistics of expanding the PARC pilot period by 1 year, and not implementing district-wide full PARC assessment. We need the opportunity to learn what these pilots reveal and teach us about such assessments. Given that CPS plans to administer the Common Core aligned NWEA map to all students in grades 2 through 8, and the College Career Readiness aligned test offered by ACT is our district mandated assessments, I feel strongly that full-scale administration of PARC in both March and May is unwarranted at this time, and today I seek the board's concurrence with this approach. The purpose of standardized test assessment is not to necessarily measure our students and measure our schools. It is to inform our teachers about instruction. At present, too many questions remain about PARC to know how this new test provides more for teachers and students and parents and principals than we are already providing through our current assessment strategies. A one-year expansion of Park Pilot is an interim strategy as we transition to full Park implementation in future years. And now, if there are any questions that you may have, members of the board, President Vitale, before proceeding to the next report, I will pause.
Any questions?
I just want to make a comment. I want to say this is, you made my day. Honestly, this is one of the best things I've heard from management in a long time, even though we have good things. But this is really great because communicating with principals and teachers, they're very frustrated. You're going to be a rock star with them. I'm just letting you know. They're going to be very happy because they are overwhelmed as it is. They have not been trained in this. So I just want to say congratulations to you and your team for making a decision that's good for teachers, principals, and kids.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, and I echo that, but just curious about timing. Any sense of timing? I know you're relying on two different third parties to opine on this and hopefully concur with us on what we think is best for our students in Chicago. But do you have any sense on when we might have that completely resolved and have their feedback?
Yeah, I am pretty confident now based on the conversations that have had at the state level. And I will add that immediately following our pilot, the president of CTU, Karen Lewis, and I firmly agreed, and I did have conversations with our team, especially with Dr. Baca, that although we were participants in the pilot, we as a district did not receive appropriate, timely information that would help to inform the next steps as a result of the pilot. Therefore, I had conversations with the state superintendent and the chair of that board, of the state board, to express my concern. And although I don't speak for Karen Lewis, I know it was her concern as well. Those conversations went in a positive direction. And I believe that the next conversation, which I will document and share with the board prior to submission to the Department of Education, that is within a week's time, if I can get that correspondence out, we will seek a timely response from them, and I anticipate that that would happen before Thanksgiving.
Great. Thank you.
I just totally agree and support. I'm just curious, how large is the pilot? At this point, will it stay the same size in the extension?
John?
Members of the board, the proposal that we're considering just now is a 10% sample for next year.
What was it? I think her question was also what was the original?
In Park Pilot, there were 10 schools in the previous school year that were engaged with that.
And so it would be a different group?
Yes. It would be a randomly selected 10%.
Other questions, comments?
I do. The transition to a new test is always very challenging. And we have to be extremely cautious. I think we're making the right decision with our CEO because it affects the labeling of schools, it affects the self-esteem of our students. So it's good that we take a pause and we make sure this represents the best for our students and our schools.
Thank you. And I would add that the other driving and compelling argument here is that we are currently, and we have engaged our teachers, our principals, and our students in NWA MAP, which is aligned to Common Core, and it just seems that the level of redundancy would lead to inefficiencies and an ineffective way to proceed.
Well, I think Barbara, you have my support for this, but I think you've also heard that you have the consensus of the board to proceed along this path and hopefully successfully in any way we can help get to this conclusion, which is the right one. We're going to be here to help you.
Excellent. I thank you very much. CPS remains committed to streamlining our central office and administrative operations so that we can direct as many resources as possible to the classroom. And to this end, we've been engaged in an extensive process to sell the current board headquarters where we sit right now at 125 South Clark Street and to repurpose our, this building and our other buildings that are no longer in use. Today, we are presenting to the board a proposal to sell 125 South Clark Street for $28 million to Blue Star Properties. This represents a substantial increase over our initial estimation. And this will add to our anticipated cost savings when we transition to the new building. As you may recall, in December 2013, when we first announced CPS would be moving into a smaller, more efficient building, we projected a cost savings at about $60 million over the next 15 years. Due to the successful negotiations of the sale of 125 South Clark, that savings number is now estimated at approximately $70 million over the next 15 years. In addition, you will consider today a vote to sell the former Peabody School site for $3.5 million. Peabody, like all of our former school sites, went through the formal process that was recommended by Mayor Rahm Emanuel's Advisory Committee for School Repurposing and Community Development. The district issued a bid solicitation for Peabody in August, and following a series of community meetings led by the aldermen, those meetings set the criteria for the bid so that the new use of the building would be appropriate and fit community needs. At the end of the process, in accordance with the board policy, the new building is now being sold to the highest qualifying bidder. And at this time, I would like to ask if Tom Tyrell, the district's chief operating officer, would come forward with a further update on the repurposing process. Tom?
Good morning, President Vitale, members of the board. I'm joined by Liza Balistreri, a real estate director. I just want to provide a brief update as to where we are with the portfolio of buildings that became available as a result of last year's schools consolidation. As you will recall, last fall and this winter, the mayor established a committee to recommend a framework that we would follow for the repurposing and disposition of these buildings. We are already bound by a very strict school code in terms of the technical aspects of selling the buildings. The real purpose of the mayor's committee was to identify a way that we could make sure that the community use that we came to for each of the buildings was one that was preferred by the community. And as the CEO mentioned, that is what's occurred in the case of Peabody, and we hope that that follows suit as the rest of the buildings transition to their new owners. For the repurposing process, it basically breaks into three categories. There's a category of immediate reuse, which we're all familiar with and has been reported. The 4 buildings that we are going to use for CPS purposes going forward. We are in the middle now of the second phase, which is the competitive redeployment, or this offer of public sale for all of the buildings. And for all of the buildings that do not sell, then we will put them into the third phase, which is categorized as a revitalization partner, where we'll bring in a third party to try and help us work out the best way to allow those buildings and communities that didn't sell to continue to support the community. If you look at page 3, where we are and where we're headed, you'll see that there's a lot of activity that's ongoing. The specific properties that we think will be moving next, you'll see Peabody today, you'll see Marconi will be rebid shortly, and there's a lot of energy and conversation around Trumbull, Near North, and Overton. And we anticipate that the alderman will provide us with the community preference for those 3 buildings shortly, and we'll be able to put them up for sale. Lastly, you'll recall last month, the LSC from Decatur made a proposal that their school could be relocated in the Stewart, the former Stewart facility, and we are now doing diligence around that proposal to see if that's a viable option. That option has been supported by the alderman, and we do have a letter in hand that supports that activity as well. So for each of these, we are following 2 basic rules. Can we find a way to put that building back to use in a way that supports the community preference? Community preference is established by the alderman, communicated to CPS. Each of the aldermen has approached it a little bit differently, but all of them involve a series of meetings with either leaders of organizations or with neighborhoods or some combination thereof. And then we have to follow the school code, which limits us to negotiating with the top 2 high bidders. They're very precise. Not a very commercial approach, but a very precise approach, and that's what we have to do. Lastly, look at the economics that we projected last year. That remains the same. Every single year going forward, we will have $43 million more dollars available to put in the classroom in operating dollars than we had prior to consolidation. And over the period of the 10-year projection, we will avoid a capital expense of some $430 million. So it's a lot of money over the future of the city, and this allows us to do one of the things that we wanted to do for this very difficult process was to continue to put operating dollars in the classrooms where we need them. Subject to your questions.
Thank you, Tom. Questions for Tom? Anybody?
I do. Tom, do we have an interest, because there's a great potential in some of these facilities to have community service centers connected to city government, connected to community organizations that can revitalize neighborhoods? Have we seen an interest in this regard?
There's been an interest. The challenge there is to identify the financial resources that would support it and make it sustainable. Those kinds of solutions are going to be the ones that we really try to creatively develop in Phase 3.
Thank you. I hope we can.
Any other questions for Tom about this? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. On October 4th and 5th, our district, Chicago Public Schools, participated in a free high school fair at McCormick Place, giving our students and their families an opportunity to understand the offerings at all of our schools, not just selective enrollment, but schools for world language to neighborhood schools, IB magnets, STEM, etc. I'm pleased to say that the fair was a tremendous success, with more than 18,300 students and their families attending over the two-day period. I'd like to offer my thanks and congratulations to the sponsors, Parent Power, who worked with Mrs. Matarasi, Leora Matarasi, from Denise Little's shop, and others of our CPS teams to organize the event. Also representatives from our high schools, principals, teachers, the departments of diverse learners, language and culture, and college and career success, who helped to make this event incredibly beneficial to our parents and students. It also caused a tremendous flood of email for me, with people asking additional questions and thanking for the opportunity to be engaged and understand what our schools have to offer. Whatever a student's interest and his ability, there is a high school here in our district that will nurture and support that student while preparing them for success in college, career, and most importantly, in life. I salute those who are exploring all of their options to see what kind of learning environments that we offer firsthand and which will suit their student best. President Vitale, members of the Board of Education, the community, this concludes my report.
Thank you. Thank you, Barbara. Any questions for Barbara about any of this before we move on? Okay, thanks again, Barbara. Again, I would remind the public and all of those who are here that the board does offer office hours, and you can schedule them with board members by calling 773-553-1600. We're pleased to offer this opportunity and look forward to seeing you in the future. With that, Madam Secretary, would you please share the details for the next board meeting?
Thank you, Mr. President. The next board meeting will be held on November 19, 2014. As President Vitale noted, this meeting will be held off-site at Westinghouse College Prep, and the meeting will begin at 4:30 p.m. Advanced registration will open at 8 a.m. Monday, November 10th, 2014, and will be extended to Monday, November 17th, 2014 at 5 p.m. due to the Veterans Day holiday on Tuesday, November 11th, or until all slots are filled, whichever is first. If anyone has any questions about this process, please contact the board office for our assistance. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. I think we are now ready to proceed with today's public participation session.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Vice President Sharkey out there, and we would invite him to come up. Jesse? Jesse, I didn't see you earlier. I was making some comments about communications I'd had with Karen, and I quoted you, hopefully accurately, saying that she's still as feisty as ever, which I confirmed, at least in my communications with her. So I hope I didn't misquote you.
That's right. Karen has all of her considerable faculties.
Yes.
And in fact, I did just want to start by saying that on behalf of the Chicago Teachers Union, I'd like to thank CEO Bird Bennett and you, President Vitale, and the members of the board for your best wishes for her health and for your prayers and thoughts. I spoke to her last night. She's very appreciative. And I am going to continue to respect her wish and desire to keep her health status out of the public eye. But I can report that she instructs me to, until she can get back here herself, to keep giving you guys a hard time.
So I'm going to do that. She let me know that. That's okay.
Good. Yeah, that's okay. So in that spirit, I'd like to raise three brief issues. The first is just something that I'm sure you're well aware of, but that the Chicago Teachers Union CBOE contract expires at the end of the school year. On our side, we're well underway, having meetings and preparing for that bargaining. We look forward to sitting down at the table and negotiating a deal that gives the children of Chicago the schools that they deserve, and the people who go to work every day in the schools that I represent, the kind of education system that we can be most proud of. So in addition to talking about the conditions of the schools themselves, expect the CTU to address some of the broader conditions in which our children in the city live. We're talking about having a city that the children deserve as well as schools they deserve. We'd like to ask that that CPS join the CTU in thinking about some creative ways to find revenue and resources to help support the education of children. Because we don't think that a child who goes home every night to no home, or whose parent works 3 part-time jobs for sub-minimum wage, is able to give their child the best kind of environment for learning. Which brings me to my second point, which is the question of revenue. You're probably aware the CTU has long advocated trying to recoup some of the considerable financial windfall that banks and other investment houses made on the interest rate deals, which we call toxic swaps. We've suggested filing for arbitration. We would also like to raise concerns about the so-called social impact bonds, which the city has recently floated in relationship to early childhood education. We don't think that that doing the right thing with young children and their education should be an opportunity for profit-taking by investment houses. I'd like to mention that we brought a former U.S. Representative, Brad Miller. We hope that you'd use his expertise, and we'd like to ask that you would meet with him and a representative of the CTU to talk about some of the opportunities that we think are there to recoup some losses in this area. Finally, we're worried about the fact that teacher evaluation scores from last year are not yet released. And I would like to ask why the final evaluation scores aren't out yet. We're talking about our members who finished their evaluations and were observed for the final times in May of last school year and still don't have their final ratings on the Reflect and Learn website. So that being said, just 2 more quick things. Thank you for moving off-site for Board of Education meeting. We've been asking for that for, I think, 5 or 6 years now. I'm glad to hear that we're doing that. And finally, I strongly agree with the Board of Ed about extending the park pilot period. We have doubts about the park altogether, and I think that it can only help us to take some more time to have a careful look under the hood on new assessments. Assessments are really one of the driving forces that we think is making school hard out in the trenches, and we'd like to make sure that we're extremely careful about the way that we view the consequences of those tests. So thank you.
Thanks, Jesse. And, I would just say to you that we all understand that the bargaining process is about to begin, and we're ready to, I'm sure the district is ready to engage in that process as it always is. And that I know we at the board, and I know the district is always looking for creative ways to find new revenue. So let's talk about that in this process and see what we can come up with. We obviously need revenue, and we've said that over and over again, so let's discuss how we can go about doing that. With respect to the swaps issue, I'm happy to meet myself or whoever here on the board wants to meet with Mr. Miller and whoever you would like to have. We're happy to set up a meeting and talk about that. We've looked at it extensively, but I'm always willing to continue to hear other people's points of view on it. So we'll schedule that at any time you'd like to come and see us. That's convenient. And then I can't give you an answer on the evaluation scores. John, can you help with the answer to that point?
Members of the board, we're in the process of finalizing those numbers and want to make sure that we have all those pieces put together with the new information that we have this year and consultation with our vendor. Those should be emerging very soon.
Okay, but we're within weeks, right, of that? Okay.
I understand that. The issue is that teachers are beginning this year and are being evaluated for the current school year without knowing their evaluation scores from the previous school year. And if the idea of an evaluation is that it isn't just a gotcha, but that it's a chance to reflect on on their practice, people need to know where they stand.
Yeah.
So
No,
I'm sure you understand that.
I
But it's
absolutely understand, appreciate it, and I don't know if it does any good, but we'll lean on John and the management to try to get this done quickly.
Okay, we will too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jess. All right, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. President. So our first speaker will be speaker number 1, please, Laura Pruitt. I would like to note that speaker number 2 will not be in attendance. The next speaker then will be speaker number 3, Rachel Lessem. And I would also like to note that speaker number 4 will not be attending, and we'll move on to speaker 5, Cassie Cresswell, please. So speaker number 1, Laura Pruitt, please.
Hi, thank you. I want to say thank you for your response to our advocacy on the park test. I'm the mother of 2 CPS high school students. I'm an LSC member at Lane Tech, and I'm a former CPS teacher, as well as someone who still works in public education. I believe the students at Lane Tech and at every school in Illinois need greater protection from their districts on this issue. And I want you to please consider my concerns here as you evaluate the pilot, as well as you look at the coming year in 2015 and 2016 testing. The park cannot be used to assess growth for schools or for students at this point. It will not be used by colleges, and it will not be used for admissions, credit, or scholarships. The test is serving as a science experiment with our children as the guinea pigs, and I would argue even the 10% are guinea pigs, and these kids deserve to be paid for their time if they're taking this test. The high school schedules are incredibly complex, and accommodating 11 hours of electronic testing is a logistic nightmare for some of our schools. Technological problems will certainly arise, and all students in buildings are going to lose time with technology, time with staff, and time on their curriculum. In order to make room for park, the AC test was moved up 2 months. ACT is used for college admissions and college scholarships. And park will not be used for either at this point, and probably not for a while. Even 1 point on ACT matters to our students in scholarships as well as admissions. With APT scheduled during the same window, scores there will also likely decline with these tests in place. So if ACT and AP test scores go down, how many thousands of dollars are we taking from the pockets of our families in scholarships?
Ms.
Yep,
Pruitt,
almost
excuse
done.
me, thank you.
What's the value of lost college admissions? How will the district be judged if our only growth measures, ACT, MAP testing, AP, go down because of park? And what's the cost on our students if park takes away their instructional time? These are really important things to think about, and I applaud your efforts to get the waiver, but please think about these things even with the pilot and with the future of testing.
Thank you,
Very
Ms. Pruitt.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please, speaker number 3, Rachel Lessem.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm a parent and an LSC member at Pritzker Elementary. Today, I'm here to urge the board to ask ISBE to apply for a waiver to suspend implementation of park. Thank you for already responding to our advocacy and our more than 1,200 petition signatures. As you have acknowledged, implementation of park this year will be harmful to our students, our schools, and our district. I am heartened by the concerns already raised by the board and by Barbara Byrd Bennett, but park should never be a high-stakes test here. Park is poorly written and poorly field tested. Park equates confusing and tricky language with rigor and authentic assessment. The test is not ready, and we are not ready. We are lucky at Pritzker to have a computer lab, but our children are spending time learning how to use Park's navigational tools instead of learning real-world skills like coding or online research. They are learning how to manipulate Park's online protractor rather than learning its uses in a real-world setting as future engineers and architects. As lucky as we are at Pritzker, we don't have the numbers of computers we need nor the internet bandwidth necessary to fit in hours of practice, hours of testing for hundreds of students that Park requires. Our infrastructure is not ready for Park. What about the schools that are less well-equipped? We lengthened the school day so our children have more time to learn, not to spend hours practicing for tests, and certainly not to spend 10 hours on one test alone. Implementation of Common Core does not require implementation of Park. Too many of our schools are still struggling with overcrowded, under-resourced classrooms. What can Park accomplish for us? Can it tell us what our children are learning? What our teachers are teaching?
Ms.
What our
Lessin?
schools are achieving? Yes.
Ms. Lessin, excuse me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are setting ourselves up to fail a test which has no validity. We will learn nothing from Park. We will waste money we cannot spare and time which should be spent on learning, time our children cannot afford to lose. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lessin. Our next speaker will be speaker number 5, Cassie Cresswell. And there's one additional speaker on Park testing, President Vitale, speaker 24 to follow, Claire Walpole. And then we'll move on to speaker number 6, please, Veronica Bedoya. Then speaker number 7, Andrew Dagrady. And speaker 12, Shayla Brown, as the designated speakers for CICS. Ralph Allison, please.
Hi, so thanks again for responding to the hundreds of emails you've received from our petition that we launched last week asking to park the park. I wanted to talk about the funding aspect of this. In order to compete for federal funds from the Race to the Top program, Illinois made many significant and expensive changes to its public education system, none of which actually had any basis in educational research and practice, including expanding charter schools and evaluating teachers with standardized test scores. Also for Race to the Top, Illinois adopted the Common Core and signed up to replace its existing tests with exams coordinated by the Park Consortium. All of these changes are costing millions upon millions of dollars. The park alone, when it's in full use, will be $40 million a year, about $11 million more than the ISAT plus the PSAE. What did Illinois get for implementing all these expensive changes? A mere $42.8 million in Race to the Top funds. To put that in perspective, that's less than 2% of the money that's been chopped from Illinois' state education budget over the last 5 years, and it's less than 0.5% of the education budget in Illinois this year. That's almost exactly the amount that just 1 year of park testing will cost, not counting all the technical infrastructure that we're putting into place simply to prep and administer this test. Park is poorly designed, it's not been properly validated, it won't be appropriate for English language learners and special ed students, and it's going to disrupt weeks and weeks of instruction time, even as a pilot. The company profiting from the sale of the test, Pearson, has a history of incompetence and corruption both in Illinois and across the country. This test and the continuation of the misguided policy of high-stakes standardized testing based accountability should be a concern not just for the parents of school-age children who are directly impacted, but for every resident of Illinois and this city who wants their tax dollars used sensibly to support high-quality, equitable public education. As appointees of the mayor, you have the ear of someone who has a direct line to every person in D.C. and Springfield who can stop this test.
Ms. Cresswell, excuse me,
As
can you
stewards
please
of hundreds
conclude?
of thousands of children and billions of dollars, you have a moral and ethical obligation to prevent the use of this test. We encourage you to share our petition with every family in this district, and please help continue to stop this test this year and, frankly, in the long term.
Thank you, Ms.
We cannot
Cresswell.
have this high-stakes testing
Thank
continue.
you. Our next speaker, please.
Hi, good morning. My name is Claire Wapel. I am a CPS parent. I have 3 kids, 2nd, 6th, and 8th grades in 2 CPS schools. I really appreciated hearing your announcement this morning, Ms. Bird-Bennett, about the park exam, and I hope after hearing me out you feel even warmer and fuzzier about that than you already do. For the past 8 years, when I've had issues with my kids' education, I have dealt directly with their teachers, with their school administrators, and with the LSC. This is the first time in over 8 years that I'm actually appealing directly to you, the Board of Education, on this issue, because with regards to parks, my kids' teachers and the principals and the LSC can do nothing about that. In this case, you are the adults in my children's lives that can help with this issue. I took a sample park exam for 3rd graders, and the questions were so subjective, so convoluted, that I was frustrated, and I'm a university-educated adult. If students in Chicago are given this test, you are going to end up with a city filled with children who feel really stupid. And they are going to feel stupid because the adults who are in charge of their education have given them this test, and they have been raised to believe that tests show their academic understanding. They're not going to be able to get these answers right, and so they're not going to end up feeling smart. I'm not against a rigorous exam being given in order to identify proficiency with regards to academic concepts, but PARCC is not such an exam. The PARCC is painfully confusing, and when all is said and done, it won't even accurately assess the students. It's so poorly conceived, so poorly written, that throughout the whole ordeal of taking it, kids will be guessing at these answers.
Ms.
So after
Wappel?
hours and hours of
Ms.
testing,
Wappel,
in the
excuse
end,
me.
the test is going to tell more about how lucky a student is than how much they actually understand. So I so appreciate the fact that you have already started a conversation with Springfield. I appreciate the fact that you've been listening to our advocacy, and I hope that this continues and that you end up keeping this at bay from our students.
Thank you, Ms. Wappel. Our next speaker, Mr. President, is speaker number 6, please. Veronica Bedoya.
Good morning. Thank you for taking some time to listen to me. My name is Veronica Bedoya, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak. Deciding where to send your children to school is a very scary process, and it shouldn't be, especially when it depends on my income and my neighborhood. I wanted to find a place where my child's education and safety was a priority. As a mother, I have to look out for her best interest. My choices were early on. I had a choice to allow my daughter to continue on her neighborhood school or to do some research. So I attended any and all open houses, school expos, and talked to other parents. We applied to all the high schools, selective and non-selective, and reviewed school performance, parent involvement, teacher performance, etc. Our list was endless. I know my child deserves to have an amazing and mind-blowing education, and one should not prevent that for her. Being that all children are not accepted to selective enrollments, I was blessed with an open enrollment option. We chose ITW Spear Academy, a noble campus. And thinking back on seeing the protest and hearing about all the community meetings where people did not want Spear Academy to open, I can't help to think that my 14-year-old daughter would not be taking introduction to engineering. At this very moment, the more parents I meet and the more people I talk to, I am certain that I made the right choice. She has a network of individuals that will stop at nothing to see my child succeed from beginning to end and even a little extra. That's amazing. We work as a team of parents, school, and community, and the results are great. I am so blessed with the decision. It's only been a few months. Thank you for allowing Noble to serve more families in my community. Sincerely, thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Bedoya. Our next speakers, please. The designated speakers for CICS, Ralph Ellison, speaker number 7, Andrew Dakerty, and speaker number 12, Shayla Brown. They will be followed by speaker number 8, please, Ray Salazar, then speaker number 9, Jatan Bird, and then the speakers from Mollison Elementary, speaker number 10, Jeanette Taylor, and speaker 31, please, Kathy Burke.
Good morning, honorable members of the board. It's a privilege to stand up here and speak to you. I have a child attending Ralph Ellison Charter School. I like to say some few kind words about what you members are doing. I'm sorry. I like to thank what y'all doing. It pleased me for the progress that they are making at the school. And I'm kind of nervous right now because I've never really been a public speaker, so
that's okay.
Bear with me for a moment.
You can just
okay?
talk to us. We're
all right.
no,
Thank you. Thank
not
you.
a problem.
Okay. Well, attending this school, I like to say the support that y'all are giving is great, and it's needed, and more is needed. I'm not out here to star no stuff, but I thank you, members, okay? I like to see the smile, too, because I know it's a long day. I know I have 2 minutes, and I'm not going to hold you up long, okay? But it's great what you're doing from the principal, the teacher, the staff, the cafeteria workers, and the work that's going on with you members is great, too. And I thank God for y'all, for the courage and the support that y'all is giving. That's all. I wanted to be brief, that's all. And thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Shala Brown. Good morning to the board members. I have 3 children who attend CICS Ralph Ellison High School in Chicago, and they're doing exceptionally well there. We're coming in from another state. Recently, we just moved back to Chicago, and our experience at CICS Ralph Ellison has been phenomenal. From day one, my children have progressed rapidly. Their grades have come up really, really high recently. My son has written his first book, and they've gotten really strong encouragement from the teachers, the principal, the staff members. They're very positive. They're out there watching the kids when they come out of school, and the children are just ecstatic about Ralph Ellison High School. I am as well, and I'm here to say thank you to the board members as well as the members of Ralph Ellison High School for their for their phenomenal work, for their dedication to the children, and for the wonderful learning environment that they have. When I came there, I took a tour of the school, and I saw different things that the children had participated in, as far as they were in the public news, and they had also made different strides in the community. And so I'm just saying thank you again for your support, and hopefully the children will move on and graduate and go to college from this point on. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Glad it's working for your children.
Thank you. And Mr. President, our next speaker then will be speaker number 8, please. Ray Salazar.
Good morning. While I teach at Hancock, I speak today as an independent teacher, as an education commentator who writes the White Rhino blog, and as the father of 2 Southwest Side children who deserve the opportunity to apply to a selective enrollment high school nearby. The decision to make Hancock a selective enrollment high school is done. Your vote today is the culmination of many undisclosed district conversations that excluded Southwest Side community voices. Yesterday's hearing was an insult. The district leader couldn't even pretend to listen to our concerns in our part of the city. You, the mayor, and the alderman heard the concerns for a selective enrollment high school, and you heard those demands, but you didn't listen. We did not ask for 1/4 of the seats available at the city's top schools. We did not ask for a rundown building that, despite the $10 million, will not survive past this decade. District leaders counted the number of tiles on Hancock's floors, but they forgot to consider the minds who fill those overcrowded spaces. When you vote yes today, you will be telling thousands of young people on the Southwest Side that you are comfortable with providing them a less than mediocre educational environment. You will tell many young people on the Southwest Side who, despite the overcrowding and the lack of district investment over the years, can gain admission to some of the top colleges in this country, colleges that some of you attended. You will tell them that they are getting what you believe they deserve. Finally, you will tell young people that college prep buildings in the West Loop and the South Loop glimmer like Trump Tower and gleam like the Wrigley Building on the North Side. But on the Southwest Side, a college prep building can stand dull like the forgotten stockyards. You will make for them an unacceptable decision. You will give them an inadequate structure that would not be good enough for any young people in your families. Thank you.
Our next speaker, please. Speaker number 9, Jatom Bird. Last call. Moving on to the next speaker, please. Speaker number 10, Jeanette Taylor. Last call. And last call for speaker.
To Board President David Vitale, excuse me, I'm sick, and the members of the board, my name is Jeanette Taylor Rahman. I'm the local school council president at Irvin C. Mollison. I am here to demand that CPS right the wrong and do the harm done to Mollison students. We merged with Anthony Overton in 2012, and the school never received full support from the board. We are in our second year of the merge, and CPS continues to disinvest in Mollison. Due to a space restriction, we are forced to have a kindergarten first grade split. I'm not a rocket scientist, but I know that pre-K through third is the most critical years of a student's academic career. If the students are not reading by then, they are doomed for the rest of their educational career. And not to mention, they build jails according to those third grade scores. The very thought of putting students in a split class at such a young age is unheard of in other parts of the cities. We were currently told that we will lose $129,337 due to an allocation of the SGSA grant, which the states miss, which they say we're missing less than 100 lunch applications. The mayor and the governor all stated that we will receive free lunch and never mandated or required to fill out forms of waiver. If the school was required to complete them, why wasn't the school informed in a timely fashion or given a window or opportunity to turn in those forms? It seems to me that CPS isn't interested in supporting students. We are taking away money for financing our after-school program and our extracurricular activities. We would also lose a teaching position and deprive students of more of a right to a fair education. We, the Irvin C. Mollison School, are asking for a grace period to turn in those lunch forms so that we can get that $129,000 back. And we're also asking, because we don't have the space to have 2 kindergarten rooms, we ask that our pre-K program that we did not ask for, that we did not have for 10 years, be moved up the street to 53rd and King Drive, where Burke is providing a full-day kindergarten service.
Ms. Taylor,
Yes.
excuse me, can you please conclude?
I will conclude. We
Thank
want
you.
the opportunity to keep our $127,000, which would allow us to purchase an additional teacher for the kindergarten split, and also to have after-school programs for our kids that were deprived last year.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please. Kathy Burke.
Good morning. I'm Kathy Burke, Dale. I'm here representing Mollison this morning as a community representative on the local school council. Wanted to share some facts. Our school is failing our children academically, per test scores, and the grades. Our children are failing. We have parents here who have had very successful children who are now, test scores are failing, grades are failing. Socially and emotionally, we're failing our children. Children are afraid to cross gang lines after Overton had been merged with our school. Making children feel as if they need to bring guns to school. The gun was in the school the entire day. No one was hurt. This kid needed to have a gun to feel safe, and now he has been treated like an adult and in the criminal justice system. Fights daily, classroom mismanagement problems. There's a teacher who had took children home to her home and show up on Facebook smoking cigarettes in her home. Financially, we can't afford needed additional teachers and staff, can't afford supplies for classrooms. I've spoken with teachers, they told me this. Can't afford after-school program. Our school is overcrowded. Your utilization formula does not work for children who are struggling. You don't close a school, put them over struggling students with other struggling students, full classroom, 30 students, and expect to have children move and learn as they should. No place for pullouts. Children are being pulled out of class to get the mandated assistance that they need, and they're being taught under the stairs or in the hallway. I have pictures of that. Under the
Ms.
stairs.
Burke?
We don't have, I
Ms.
will
Burke,
wrap up.
thank
We
you.
have no parent room that we've had in previously. Last year, we lost our lunchroom. Children had to eat lunch in the gym room. We've got the lunchroom back this year, but now we got a K and first grade, kindergarten first grade split. Where's the support? And now we're losing $147,000. This is another way that the Board of Education intentionally hurts our children, sabotages our school. We are now, this year, we just got our test scores. Our children did terribly. Last year, we got off of probation, and now we're back on. We had made progress one year. According to the board, we have to make 2 years consecutive progress, and we didn't make it. How do you address this? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next
So,
speaker.
I'm sorry. So what?
Thank you, Ms.
What
Burke.
how will we have this addressed?
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Our next speaker.
Just tell me how it will be addressed and we'll leave.
Ms. Burke,
Will we hear from someone later?
Ms. Burke, would
Look
you
at the
see
situation.
Michelle Hurley
Thank you
over
very
there,
much.
please?
Michelle Early, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our next speaker then will be speaker number 11, Carrie Murphy, followed by speaker 13, Arnold Steiber, speaker 14, Sam Hill, and then speaker 15, Evangel Yanubian, please.
Right.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Carrie Murphy. The principal of our school, Dever Elementary, of which I'm a parent representative on the LSC, appealed to the Board of Education at the last meeting to address our overcrowding issues. And Mr. Vitale stated Mr. Cawley or Mrs. Taylor would reach out to her. That has not occurred. Instead, Mr. Hadgu, I'm sorry, I don't know how to say his last name, came to Dever to address an issue of children eating lunch in the classroom, which they don't do. And there has been no follow-up since. We need this to be addressed. It is a very big problem, the overcrowding is. While there is money in our school budget to hire an additional teacher, we have nowhere to put them unless we put them in the hallway. In our multi-purpose room, dance class and lunch occur at the same time with just a room divider between them. There is also a room divider between them with the gym attached to the multi-purpose room. So you can imagine the noise. Recess occurs on a concrete, partially fenced-in area where balls go flying into the street constantly. There is no possibility for extracurricular programs because there is nowhere to have them. Our enrollment is 844 students with a capacity of 630, and it will only continue to climb because it is an excellent school. Our PTA meeting was held on the front steps of the school outside. If you're looking to encourage parental involvement, this is not the way to do it. Mrs. Ortiz is looking forward to hearing from Mrs. Taylor or Mr. Crawley so that they can have a discussion about the future planning and expansion of our school. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Ms. Murphy.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please. Speaker 13, Arnold Steiber.
Hi, good morning. My name is Arnie Stieber. I'm a grandfather, retired CEO with an MBA, and an Army infantry veteran from the U.S. war against the people of Vietnam. I'm here today to speak to you about an uncomfortable truth. The military teaches violence. I'll say that again. The military teaches violence. Whether it's wrapped in a flag, or called hero or service, or dressed in a uniform with bright medals and ribbons, the military model is conflict resolution by violence and following orders without question. Good people are taught and ordered to do bad things. I'm sure you are all well-intended, but teaching the military model to 10,000 of our children is counterproductive not only to the children, but to this city and to this nation. Instead of the military model, I encourage you to explore nonviolence as an educational discipline. Check out futureswithoutviolence.org or the Albert Einstein Institute. Martin Luther King, after visiting with gang leaders and hearing them say that they use the same methods as the military to solve conflicts, said, "I knew that I could never again raise my voice against violence without first having spoken clearly to the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today, my own government." You, CPS, are part of that government. I urge you to lead by example, as Martin Luther King did. Teach our children nonviolence versus the military model. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stieber. Our next speaker will be Speaker 14, Sam Hill. Last call for Sam Hill. Moving on to Speaker then 15, Evangel Yanubian, followed by Speaker number 18, please, Pastor Brian Jones, and then Speaker number 19, Queen's Sister, and Speaker number 20, George Blakemore, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You all know the drill. I invite you all to kick the K-word habit. A kid is an animal beast with 4 legs. A child is a human being person with 2 legs. They have an inalienable right to be called boys and girls. Using the K word robs them of that, and it is a slang word, and proper grammar should be used in schools. As founding president of Global Committee commemorating King Days, we seek support for a red, black, and green civic history commemoration for December 18th, 2015, the 150th anniversary of the signing of the 13th Amendment to honor the memory of the victims of USA chattel slavery and the 50th anniversary of the Voting Rights Bill. Placing a red, black, and green wreath on the White House lawn, executive order for an annual observance for December 18th. Teaching civic history in schools using designated textbooks, the Bible, 12 Years a Slave, and the 1967 Kerner Report will promote peace, justice, and cultural respect with values and education on voting as a civic responsibility urban solution for a more perfect union. Now, my question is really, do you have or do you think that there will be any legal concerns for using the Bible as a textbook? The Bible fits the category of a textbook, which is a book used as a standard source of information on a particular subject, and the Bible does fit that definition.
Ms. Nubian, excuse me, can you please conclude?
I will conclude. Thank you. Why the Bible? Because the President of the United States swears on a Bible. He doesn't swear on the Quran, although we're not saying that those are not adequate sources of information. We also swear on a Bible in a court of law. So if it's good enough for the President and it's good enough for governmental officials, it should be good enough for our children.
Thank you, Mr. Nubian.
You're welcome.
Our next speaker, please. Speaker number 18, Pastor Brian Jones. Last call. Moving on to the next speaker, last call for Queen Sister. And last call for speaker number 20, please, George Blakemore.
As a concerned citizen, I was blessed, my name is George Blakemore, to go to City Hall, City Council, to sit in on a naturalization hearing. I say, oh, this is a blessing. I know it's usually a federal process, but the Mayor Emanuel had it at City Council. Let me be a little articulate. And I was just amazed. These was 44 countries, and by 4 black citizens were sworn in to our great country, the United States of America. These are people who've been going by the rule of law, custom and immigration, studying the language, the culture of this country. I was happy to see this. Also, I'm saddened to see the people that's not going by the rule of law. This Board of Education here, the negative effect on the financial crisis of this district by bringing illegal immigrants' children in to use our resources. And I'm appalled to hear and see 50 black schools are closed up.
Mr. Blakemore.
When Mr. Blakemore, wait a minute.
Mr. Blakemore.
You're not happy. Well, I know about time. I have not spent my complete time. You should have a timer up where the people can see how it ticks. It ticks one way when it's something you want to hear, and it ticks another way when it's something you don't want to hear. So the last thing that I'm going to say, with these 50 schools that's closed up, These people in the community should have a say-so, and that ultimate say they have community meetings. They should list the number of people who attended this meeting, and forever, these schools must, that property must reflect the racial makeup of the children that was put out of these schools and closed up. I'm appalled to these
Mr. Blakemore.
Negroes, African-American colored folks that don't get up and speak out about the negative effect that illegal immigrants have on this school.
Mr. President, our next speaker, Lauren Howard, will not be in attendance. Moving on to the next group of speakers. Speaker number 22, please. Michelle Villegas, followed by speaker number 39, Katrina Carcases, and speaker 40, Myra Fernandez, please. Number 22, please, Michelle Villegas.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Villegas, and I am a parent of 2 CPS students and a former LSC member and PTA member. There has been a lot of news recently that is very important regarding CPS. One is that the population of CPS has dropped below 400,000 students for the first time in 20 years. We have too much capacity. And this is the case in Lincoln Park, where we have 2,500 excess seats compared to students residing. According to CEO Barbara Byrd Bennett, she is confirming that she is advocating for co-location of 2 or more schools within the same building if the combined projected enrollment fits CPS's space utilization standards. She's considering moving overcrowded schools' boundaries that could move students from their neighborhood school to another if surrounding schools have room for more students. This confirms the Educational Facilities Master Plan passed in the fall of 2013 and the guidelines that were state mandated for dealing with capacity issues within CPS. The Illinois Appellate Court just set precedent that school districts must abide by zoning laws. And yet, your backroom deal to allocate $20 million to Lincoln Elementary School for an unnecessary gleaming annex, and I would like to confirm what Mr. Salazar said, this is on the north side. We have a gleaming annex about to be built that is not needed. It was allocated to Lincoln, and it violated state-mandated guidelines in the Educational Facility Master Plan, stated policy by CEO Barbara Byrd Bennett,
Ms.
best
Villegas?
practices in education policy
Ms.
and
Villegas,
urban planning.
excuse me.
Yes.
Can you please conclude?
Yes.
Thank
and
you.
violates city zoning laws. This money was diverted out of a strapped CPS budget to the detriment of other students who need it more. It is a shameful waste of taxpayer funds and an appalling display of Chicago politics at its worst.
Thank you, Ms. Villegas. Our next speaker, please, Katrina Carcases.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Katrina Carcases Lionikis, and I'm a parent of 2 children at Lincoln Elementary and a neighbor of the school. I would like to know why CPS's official protocol for handling overcrowding was ignored in favor of spending $20 million to build an unwanted annex in place of our school's playground when 50 schools across our city were closed in order to cut costs. Our playground not only accommodated recess and school traditions, it functioned as a backyard and safe haven for neighborhood children of all ages before and after school, evenings, weekends, holidays, and throughout summer break. It was the hearth of our community and quite often the happiest place on earth. When we in this neighborhood invested here, we did so with the understanding that our children would have this playground as part of a small school educational experience and everyday life. The idea to alleviate the overcrowding at Lincoln by ripping out our playground with the intention of packing more students into an already very congested area was secretly hatched and done as a done deal by a small, non-representative minority behind closed doors for something that so drastically diminishes diminishes our quality of life, particularly the health, happiness, and safety of our children, and something that permanently alters the stability and character of our historic school, our community, and at the very least have been allowed, our community at the very least should have been allowed a voice in this process. To spend $20 million when there is such extreme need in our system, and there are still no-cost win-win solutions and hundreds of seats in surrounding schools available, is unacceptable. Thank
Ms.
you.
Carcasis, thank you. Our next speaker, please, Maria Fernandez.
That would be Myra.
Myra, excuse me.
That's okay.
Thank
Been
you.
doing it since first grade in a CPS school, as a matter of fact. I speak to you today as a CPS alum, a former CPS teacher, a soon-to-be CPS substitute teacher, but most importantly, as the parent of 2 CPS students. I have a resume which is committed to the CPS system and actually proves that my experiences have been positive and negative. I student taught at Newberry Academy. I taught at Roque de Dupré in Humboldt Park for 2 years, and then I ended my career at Manier Elementary for 7 years. My son attended Ogden in its final year as a good old fuzzy CPS building, and both of my children suffered through the inaugural year of the $50 million building, which had a caged play area. As a teacher, I was obligated to exhaust all avenues to remediate, encourage, support, and foster my students' capabilities and possibilities. And I ask today if you have exhausted all avenues possible to do the same for the students of Lincoln. I am taxed, pun intended, as a parent who is continually defending and explaining the board's actions. Upon the news of a new rooftop annex, my 6th grade son said, "They didn't even ask us." My kids chose to stay inside at recess at Ogden Elementary because of the cage on the top. I asked that the bait and switch of the Ogden School Annex plans, from plans to fruition, which showed a beautiful green glassed-in area, are thought of and considered when you plan to move forward, if you should move forward with this annex for Lincoln Elementary, which, by the way, I'd like to take our $20 million and offer everyone in the room a new school. This is a teachable moment that you cannot ignore. We cannot spend money easily when all our kids wanted was our good old fuzzy playground. They don't want a shiny new
Ms.
school.
Fernandez, excuse me, can you please
I
conclude?
can.
Thank you.
So in closing, I would like to ask that you move forward and use this moment to consider other avenues which are much more fiscally responsible and politically and emotionally for the children more accurate to what they need and appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Mr. President, will be speaker number 23, please, George Schmidt, followed by 2 speakers from the Chicago Multi-Parent Council Executive Board. Speaker 26 will speak first. That's Marisela Salazar Villarreal, followed by speaker 25, Raul Rodriguez, and then we have speaker number 27, please, Gerard Schultz.
Good morning.
Morning.
My default emotion when talking to the board is usually anger because of the 40 years of hypocrisy that I've covered since I began covering the Board of Education in 1975. However, we have to smile today at least that you got something right with the postponement of the full implementation of the park. And I do say I'm glad to hear that, but now there are other things to discuss. My topic was fiscal responsibility, or irresponsibility in your case, and I'm glad to be following the people from Lincoln Elementary who are pointing out the same prejudices, biases, and silliness. Mainly, for the past several years, I was one of the people who first exposed the fact that in 2004, this Board of Education entered into interest rate swaps with banks prior to having a policy, which you didn't even have until 2008. At the time that the former CEO of this board entered into the swaps, they were probably illegal. Last month, you were asked to arbitrate those swaps to determine whether, at a benefit of $36 million minimum to our children, we could recoup that money because, according to the record, those swaps were entered into without the downside being exposed. I was recently told that you haven't asked for that arbitration. And so I would like to, on the basis of my own experience here and long other experience, ask first of all to confirm that you haven't asked for that arbitration, and then second to ask why. Mr. Ruiz, you spoke last time about this. Has the board asked to go into arbitration on the
I
swaps?
don't believe they have, and as I asked last time, there requires evidence of fraud, and what you're alleging, that as far as I know, there exists none. And I asked the gentleman who's sitting over there to please forward that, and to date, we haven't received any.
No, it doesn't require evidence to ask for an arbitration.
Of course it
You know
does.
that.
Of course it does. You gotta
What's
have grounds
required
and
in this
basis to do
case, what you said last time specifically is that there might be two sides. If the Board of Education goes in on the basis of the record is actually partly in your own consolidated
Mr.
annual
Schmidt,
financial reports. Thank you
Mr.
very
Schmidt,
much,
thank
Estella.
you. Thank
Always
you.
good to hear your voice.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
And you didn't give me my 15 seconds, so I'm going to take it. In your CAFR, every year,
Mr. Schmidt,
since
thank
these
you.
began,
Our next speaker, please.
you've exposed this. That's your information.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please. Marisela Salazar.
Buenos días, presidente y respetables miembros del Buró de Educación. Mi nombre es Marisela Villarreal, presidenta del Concilio Multilingüe de Padres de la Ciudad de Chicago. Hoy estamos ante ustedes para presentarnos como concilio y grupo de servicio a la educación.
Good morning, President and honorable members of the Chicago Board of Education. My name is Marisela Villarreal, President of the Chicago Multilingual Parent Council. Today we are here to introduce ourselves as a council and organization who serve bilingual education.
Somos 21 personas electas, padres, maestros y comunidad, bajo la dirección de la señora Karen Garibay y la oficina de OLCE, con representantes de todas las áreas de la ciudad, de varias culturas e idiomas, que merecen participación y reconocimiento.
We are 21 elected individuals, parents, teachers, and community, with representation of all the areas of the city, including many cultures and languages, that deserve representation and participation. We are under the leadership of Mrs. Karen Garibay and the Office of Language and Culture and Education.
Somos un enlace factible y de primera mano para proveer información y opinión acerca de los programas y métodos académicos bilingües que se desarrollan en las escuelas. La comunidad bilingüe se ha ido incrementando anualmente, hecho que hace necesaria innovación y reformas al sistema educativo.
We are an effective first-hand connection who provide information and suggestions about academic bilingual programs and methods inside our school.
Por contar y ser parte de esa creciente comunidad, podemos proveer información y aportaciones para mejorar y hacer más exitosa la educación de nuestros hijos. Trabajando juntos, padres, maestros y comunidad, lograremos el éxito académico de nuestros niños. Quedamos de ustedes, sus seguros servidores, el comité de CMPC.
Bilingual students' population had increased. This fact has made necessary more innovation and reforms to the system. We are part of this growing community, and so we can inform and help to have a more successful education for our children. Parents, teachers, and community all working together for the academic success of our students. We are the Chicago Multilingual Parent Council. To the order. Thank you.
Our next speaker, please, Mr. Rodriguez.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Raul Rodriguez, the CMPC Secretary. I'm going to give you a brief overview about who we are. Let me inform you that the Illinois School Code mandates that each school district with English learners establish a parent advisory committee. Specifically, for the Chicago Public School District, we are known as the Chicago Multilingual Parents Council. One of our objectives as a committee is to advise the Office of Language and Cultural Education on matters pertaining to the development, implementation, and evaluation of the programs. For English learners, our committee is composed of delegates representing the 5 academic networks with proportional representation of other language groups in the school district. This proportional representation shall be reflected in its leadership structure. Guidelines and operational procedures will be designed by the Office of Language and Cultural Education to ensure that the CMPC has adequate representation of groups of parents, teachers, and community representatives. Our job is to make parents aware of the importance of their participation in local bilingual advisory committees, other school-based committees, and events related to bilingual education. As you can see on this table, we have scheduled various CMPC meetings for this school year. All of you will be welcome to attend to any of these meetings. If you have any questions at this time, our director, our OCE director, Ms. Garibay Multier, can answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, I just want to add, I want to thank you for contributing your time to the quality of our bilingual and multicultural programs. Le damos las gracias a todos por contribuir su tiempo a la calidad de la educación bilingüe.
Thank you. And our next speaker, Mr. President, then will be speaker number 27, please, Gerard Schultz, followed by speaker number 28, Dacia Skinner, speaker 32, Marilyn Esco, and then speaker 43, Kendra Smith.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I hope everyone received our brochure. We are also here from the southwest side, from a school called Door Elementary, which is just west of Midway. We have formed a political action committee called Mission Edition due to our overcrowding. That's why we're here today. We are a level 1 rating school. We are not on probation. We are in the 99th percentile for growth in math and reading. And we're also the highest performing school in the 60638 area code. Our culture at Door supports good behavior, and as you can see, we have very low rates of discipline. Unfortunately, though, with our overcrowding, our art, music, and computers are on a cart. Those classes contain 42 kids per class. We recently had opened a second grade class. Our average classroom size is 35 kids and growing. Our low incidence students have to be moved out of Door at the 5th grade because of lack of facilities. Door has no library. We have no library, and we will not be park compliant, and because we are short at least 100 computers, if not more. We have multiple partnerships, including a sister school in Australia, and we are just out of ideas, especially with every year how the budget gets cut. We have 40 programs. Door houses 40 programs for the school and the community as well, which is on the back side of the brochure. Our principal, Dr. Alvarez, she is unable to address the entire school body at one time because our room, whatever you want to call it, maybe a gym, is insufficient. Our Christmas programs and any other kind of programs that we host have to be held in 2 days. We tried it one day, and it was ridiculous.
Mr. Schultz, excuse me, can you please conclude?
Okay, sure. And we are here today, obviously, to ask the board what they will do for the highest performing school in the 60638 area code.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Schultz, in these overcrowding situations, the board has generally, one of us has generally come out to actually take a look at the situation. I just leaned over to Board Member Zopp, and she's agreed to go out and take a look at your situation. And
the mayor's come out twice already this year. So.
Yeah, so Andy will get out there to see your school and see what the situation is about.
That would be great. That'd be fantastic. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our next speaker then is speaker 28, please, Dacia Skinner.
Hello, it's Deja Skinner. Thank you.
I'm a youth and education organizer with the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless. I collaborate with homeless parents and student leaders from Chicago Public Schools. The STLS policy, which stands for Students in Temporary Living Situations, is of major concern. The current policy was created in 1996 and hasn't been updated since then. It has not kept up with current laws, and every section of it is outdated. I have reviewed a proposed STLS policy, which I find very short, non-detailed, and vague. I understand the website is more detailed about what services students get, but if it is not on the policy, services can be removed without board approval. This also puts our homeless students at risk of being denied vital support. CPS identified over 20,000 homeless students who need all the support they can get to stay in school. This policy is important because it serves as a way to ensure board staff follow the rules. It also protects the rights of homeless families to make sure they get what they need to keep their children in school. In conclusion, I ask that the board update and create a comprehensive policy to protect and support our homeless students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Skinner. Our next speaker, please, Speaker
Can I say something?
32.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Speaker 32, please, Marilyn Esco.
Good afternoon. My name is Marilyn Esco, and I wanted to talk to you all about the STLS policy and my experience with homelessness. I became homeless being a single parent of 4 children and having to care for my sick mother. This didn't leave me any time to work enough hours to pay for rent and other bills. Some of the daily struggles I faced when I was homeless was always being worried about getting back on my feet. Where will my family live, and just getting by from day to day? Homelessness affects my children's education because they are late for school, their grades fall, and their self-esteem lowers. The hardship transportation through the STLS program helped my children get to school on time and safely as I worked to find a full-time job to get stable. But I had to fight for this bus service. With the help of the lawyers from the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless, the liaison and the principal delayed getting a bus for my kids, even though I had verification of hardship, and even though the policy states that these services should be initiated immediately. A good homeless policy should say what a parent needs to prove hardship. Make sure that there is more than one school staff trained in the STLS program so that they are aware of the services and how to help homeless families. Also, there should be someone to check and make sure each liaison in school is doing what they are supposed to do. I know that there has been a proposed policy which I find empty and not detailed. While a website is good, the actual policy should describe all specifics and details about what students and caregivers can get. If it is not in the policy, there is no legal document to hold liaisons and principals accountable if they violate this policy. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to say to the parent who just left that we're aware, and I agree with both of them, that it needs to be updated. And I met with the group last month, and we're looking into updating the policy for parents who have not been supported correctly, and also for those who are abusing it.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please, then. Last call for Kendra Smith. Moving on to the next speakers. Speaker number 29, please, Sam Jones, followed by speaker number 30, Taishi Newman from Gale Elementary, followed by speaker 33, Ralph Miller, and then the designated speakers from Farragut, please. Speaker number 34, Maria Silva, and speaker 36, Melissa Romero. Sam Jones, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Sam Jones. In my youth, I became homeless because of my mama. She didn't have money to pay the rent. We lived in abandoned buildings. We didn't have lights, gas, or water. I never had money to wash my clothes. I didn't even have bus fare half of the time to get to school. So as a child, I went in the McDonald's bathroom to wash up before I went to school. Me and my brothers, we shared clothes. you know, and by me being the shorter one, I had to tuck my pants so the kids won't make fun of me. So I understand how it is to be homeless, which make me an expert on this subject for improving this policy. A good homeless policy should have a time frame for school staff to distribute uniforms, supplies, and bus cars within a weekly time. These items are essential to ensure children are prepared for school and not take 2 to 3 months like at Gale School where my child attends. Most important, the policy should keep up with the current law and be complete and detailed, including all the specifics about what support and service homeless families are entitled to. I know that a new policy has been proposed and I have reviewed it. While it is good to have details of a policy on a website, every detail of the STLS program should also be on an official policy document that will protect the rights of homeless parents like myself. For if it is only on a website, its contents can be changed without board approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Our next speaker, please, Ms. Newman.
Hello, my name is Taisha Newman, and I want to talk about the STLS policy and my experience with being homeless. I became homeless because of my pain from my multiple sclerosis. It left me unable to perform my job duties. So I became unemployed and couldn't work to pay my rent or other bills. Being homeless made it hard for me to afford bus fare, to take my daughter to school. In the wintertime, I had an option to buy boots or a warm coat for my daughter. What would you have chosen? I chose a coat to keep her warm on our 30-minute walk to school. I would put grocery bags in our gym shoes to keep our feet from getting wet in the snow. When we would make it to the school, sometime our feet would still get wet and my daughter's feet was almost frostbitten. The STLS policy is very important because it helps parents like me who are without a home and with limited or often no funds to keep our children in school so they can receive an education. I know the STLS program provides boots and coats for students, but this should be stated in every other details of services on an official policy. I also have looked over a proposed STLS policy, which I do not like. It is vague and not detailed enough. A good policy should be detailed and comprehensive. Its details should not only be on a website, but also on an official policy to protect the rights of homeless students and ensure the school staff follows what's on the policy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My driver's license says I'm Ralph Miller, but I go by Brad. Jesse Sharkey mentioned that I would be here. He said I was expert because I was a former member of Congress. I'm well aware that that regard is not widely shared by Americans, but to talk about swaps. But more important, I'm now a lawyer with the firm of Grace and Ellsworth, which represents plaintiff investors in structured finance litigation. And my legal analysis is also the work of securities litigators, and that analysis has been informed by experts in municipal finance. And President Vitale, I would be delighted to have the opportunity to talk with you and others at CPS about the transactions. I don't think it is possible to assess any particular transaction without closely reviewing all the documents and the representations of the underwriters, in other words, the banks. What we do know is that the banks were required to deal with everybody fairly, including pretty sophisticated issuers of public debt like CPS. The Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board is required by the securities laws to issue market integrity rules. In 2012, the MSRB issued guidance, fairly detailed guidance, 30 or 40 pages worth, on exactly the kind of complex debt that the CPS and many other issuers of public debt had in the last decade. The complex transactions paired a variable rate debt with very long-term interest rate swaps that would supposedly create a synthetic fixed rate. Those transactions were common here and in Britain, and often came to grief, both here and in Britain.
Mr. Miller, excuse me, can you please conclude?
I will speak quickly.
Thank you.
Both there and here, regulators and the borrowers have been slow to understand that the grief was not just bad luck, but often the result of known risks that were not properly disclosed. As in Britain, there are remedies for those violations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. As I said, I'm willing, or other board members are willing to meet. We actually have office hours. If people want to come and talk to us about this, we're happy to listen.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. The designated speaker next for Farragut is Speaker 34, Maria Silva, followed by Speaker 36, Melissa Romero, and then we will proceed with Speaker 38, please, Rosalind Major, followed by Speaker 41, George Solomon.
Good afternoon. My name is Maria Silva. I was LSC member for 12 years in Farragut High School. I just came over here to just, is possible when it's gonna be finally, resolve the problems over there in Farragut. I was sitting with Miss Denise Little, and we brought the complaints with about over there about the dropout, all the students over there. The last year it was 387 students are on the street. It's and I just want to find out when it's gonna be happen the actions over there in Farragut. And I wish they can do is possible, because who's suffering over there are the students. And over there only community, and I'm worried about the student because, are in the streets. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
My name is Melissa Romero, and I'm a LSC member at Farragut. I'm also a chairperson on the NCLB. I'm here today because I've reached out to Denise Little. I've also sent a letter to Ms. Barbara Bennett about issues that have been happening at Farragut, the way students are mistreated, the way they're spoken down to because of the community they live in. They are being harassed, they're being hit by the students with their hand, by the staff with their hand, shoved on the walls, disrespected, and it's just too much. Last year, students were they stood in school suspension for 2 weeks, months, and they just gave up to the point where they dropped out. Farragut's more concerned on the attendance. If they see a student damaging any attendance, they target the student and harass them and push them to the streets. They don't let the students try to get re-enrolled because it's damaging the attendance. I've let Ms. Hamaker know. She says 3 things all the time. I had no idea. I didn't know. I'll check in. I don't know. It's just too much. We're only giving them the bare essentials. If we're IB compatible, why don't we have any programs in there? Ms. Hamaker promised us a law program. She never had it. We have a second assistant principal. Instead of using that money for more programs, we have 950 kids in the school right now, and it once held 2,500. I don't understand why if you walk out of the school after school, there's more students across the street that have been dropped than kids leaving the building. If you look on the Little Village homicide, all the kids that are listed there were students that were dropped by Ms. McFall and Ms. Hamaker.
Ms. Romero, excuse me, can you please conclude?
Yes, I will. I just want to say that I believe a strong school builds a strong community, and Farragut is not doing that to our community. It's a weak school, and Ms. Hammaker needs to be removed because she's not helping any student that's going, whatever.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say, I attended a safety committee meeting about a week ago, and this issue came out, which affects all the schools as well as other schools, and we're addressing a plan with the alderman and trying to see what's really get to the bottom of this. Thank you.
I'm focused on the security that's hitting our students, that the verbal abuse on the students too. Nobody's addressing that either.
Thank you.
Would you please see Ms. Hurley on that very issue? She'll catch you in the back of the room.
I'd also like to add, excuse me, that I did receive a correspondence from you, and Ms. Little and I are convening a meeting with the network chief and the principal, and I will get back to you with the results of those conversations, et cetera, and then I'd like to meet with you as well.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Mr. President, is Speaker 38, Rosalind Major. Last call. Moving on to Speaker 41, George Solomon. Last call. We then have Speaker number 44, please, Martha Valdez, followed by Speaker number 45, Brianna Southern, and Speaker 46, please, Sherrod Baker. Ms. Valdez.
Hello. I am a community member at Curie High School, and I would like to bring to your attention a hazardous condition that is that
Excuse me, are you Ms. Valdez? Could you just say your name? I'm sorry.
Oh, my name is Marta Valdez Contreras.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I am an LSC member at Curie High School, and I wanted to bring two situations perhaps that you could help us with. The first is a possible hazardous condition that has been present and it's been ongoing for 4 weeks. It's a firewall that is stuck down on the down position, and the children are made to make their way through the one corridor on the first floor. And the second is that, it's made the news, the situation of deteriorating sanitation. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Can you just say again what you said? What were one is the sanitation generally, and what was the other issue?
The fire hazard wall, the wall that's come down. Maybe the student board member could come on.
Just to go on to what she was saying, talking about at the school is broken down into two parts. There's a courtyard in the middle of the school,
Right.
and there's two hallways where students enter in and out to the side of the schools. Now, on one side of this courtyard or one side of the hallway, there's a firewall that has sprung down and won't go back up for the causes of, I think, the engine motor or something that's going wrong with it, and so wouldn't allow the door to go back up, so causing for students to go into one hallway, which in the school of 3,000 students, imagine them trying to
Got
go
it.
on the first floor on the one
Okay.
side of the hallway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Already ordering first week of November. It will be fixed.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry it's taking a little bit of time, but
We-
give it another couple of weeks and I'm told it will be fixed. Right?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Valdez.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for explaining that.
Yeah, thank you, Angel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our next speaker, please, Speaker 45, Brianna Southern.
Good morning. My name is Brianna Southern, and I am a parent and LSC member at Beethoven Elementary School. I am deeply concerned about the decisions that the current principal has made and how they are affecting the education of the children and the climate of the school. The LSC evaluates principals based on several factors, the first of which are school and instructional leadership. In order for a principal to be sufficiently evaluated on these two factors, a continuous improvement work plan must be in place. This principal was given this task in March and has yet to submit a final draft for LSC approval. Therefore, the school is currently running with no strategic goals in place or plans for improvement. The principal is also evaluated on her ability to maintain a student-centered learning environment, as well as encouraging professional development among teachers and staff to improve student academic achievement. It is impossible for her to be evaluated on these two factors because curriculum for students still has not been ordered. Students are about to receive their report cards in a matter of weeks, but they do not have books. Teachers have attempted to make the best of this situation by providing supplemental materials, but the main office remains locked during the day, and when teachers are permitted access, they are often told by the office staff that they cannot make copies. But the most disheartening decision that this principal has made is in regards to the diverse learners. These students are now entering the general population classroom towards the middle or end of the school period. Thus, they are missing the instructions and lessons that teachers have given. Also, it has opened these students up to bullying and further stigmatization from other students. The principal has not fostered relationships with the community or parents because parents have to wait long periods of time to meet with her, or she is unavailable. This school has some of the best teachers and some of the brightest students in the city. However, teachers will continue to leave and students will continue to be transferred if these issues are not addressed properly and immediately. The current chief, as well as her predecessors, are aware of these issues and other issues that are plaguing this school. However, nothing has been done.
Ms. Southern, excuse me, can you please conclude?
Yes. Last year, the principal received a 9 on her principal evaluation, but she is still there. If this school was in Beverly or the North Side, I would not be standing in front of you today because she would have been removed. Black and Latino students they are entitled to actually the same education and quality of leadership as their counterparts in more affluent communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Southern.
Ms. Southern, can I just ask you a question? It's me, here.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. Did you say that the students don't have educational materials? Did I hear you say that?
You heard me correctly.
And how many classes would that be?
I do not know off the top of my head. I do know that the school has maybe about 400 students.
All right, so you're suggesting that none of the students have books, or you're suggesting
The
that?
LSD meeting that I went to 2 weeks ago, the principal stated that math and reading materials were ordered, but she said that also in September. So to date, nothing has been ordered.
Okay, all right, so we'll have somebody look into it. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please. Sherrod Baker, last call. Moving on to the designated speakers for Orozco, there are 2 groups. President Vitale, the first group designated speakers will be Speaker 47, Laura Gonzalez, followed by Speaker 49, Rafael Nunez, as the 2 designated speakers.
Good afternoon. My name is Rafael Nunez. As parents from Orozco students, we are very concerned about the constant bullying from the LSC to the principal. The LSC is not working for the benefit of our children. Instead, their meetings are designated as an opportunity and a forum for the LSC to discredit the principal. The LSC doesn't allow the principal to do the complete report. As soon as she starts informing of the achievements of the school, the LSC chair cuts her off and stops her from continuing. The LSC meeting takes too long often, 2.5 hours or longer, while the children miss instructional time. Parents leave the meetings. The LSC has denied public participation to parents and only allowed more than 3 when they know people will talk bad about the principal. 2 of the teacher positions were lost recently, and 6th grader classrooms had to combine. This could have been prevented, but because of the LSC decided to spend the entire rollover funds of about $400,000, 3 of our current members were part of the budget committee. We didn't have office and support staff working during the summer because of the LSC failed to approve a budget. Books came in late. This affects our children, but the LSC doesn't care. They only concentrate on generating a bigger workload for the principal. Last week, they cut 2 of the office positions, making it more difficult for the principal to continue making good progress. They are only interested in getting rid of the principal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Gonzalez?
El presupuesto fue aprobado por el concilio escolar sin tomar en cuenta a la directora. No le dieron oportunidad de que ella participara. El día de la reunión organizativa, el concilio presentó y aprobó el presupuesto escolar, esto a pesar de que 6 miembros son nuevos y no habían tomado los talleres requeridos. ¿Cómo pueden aprobar un presupuesto que nunca habían visto?
Mrs. Laura González,
The LSC approved the budget without the principal's input, and they did it in the first organizing meeting, even though 6 of the new members didn't comply with the mandatory training.
Como padres que estamos presentes en estas reuniones, somos testigos del constante bullying hacia la directora. Las reuniones las hemos grabado y están disponibles para su inspección. A continuación, nos gustaría mencionar algunos puntos del gran desempeño de la doctora Nancy Polet Aguirre. Cuando la directora llegó a la escuela, esta se encontraba en nivel 2. Ella ha logrado llevarla al nivel 1.
We as parents have been witnessing the constant bullying against the principal, and we have this recorder as a fact. And I'd like to mention now some highlights of the principal's action. When she took over, the school was at level 2, now is at level 1.
Actualmente se encuentra posicionada en el primer lugar en el Network 7, también alto rendimiento académico en el NWAA en DRC. La directora constantemente muestra su disponibilidad llevando a cabo una reunión mensual con padres y miembros de la comunidad. Asimismo, muestra su apoyo a los diferentes comités de padres voluntarios y programas que ella ha traído a la escuela.
The school now is in the first place on the network. Also, it had best results in the test NYEA, TRC. She's always willing to meet with parents, organizing at least one meeting a month.
Además, acaba de conseguir un grant de $1.5 million para la ampliación del patio de nuestra escuela.
Ms. Gonzalez, excuse me, can you please conclude?
She just got a $1 million grant to renovate the playground.
Estamos hartos del bullying, despotismo, prepotencia y difamación de este concilio. Como padres de una comunidad latina nos sentimos intimidados al punto de que varios padres han pensado sacar a sus hijos de esta escuela si esta situación no cambia. Por eso pedimos la destitución de este concilio y que se convoque a una nueva elección.
Okay, so summarizing, we are fed up with the bullying, disrespect, and the defamation. The Latino community feels intimidated. We are considering pulling out our children because of this toxic environment.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. Our next group from Orozco, then, Mr. President, is Speaker 53, Carla Espinoza, followed by Speaker 54, Miriam Arriaga, and then we will have Speaker 51, Kristen Secoria, and the last speaker, 52, Lawrence Ligas, please. Ms. Espinoza? Last call. Next speaker, Miriam Araga. Last call. Christian Sikora. And Lawrence Ligas. Mr. Ligas, please.
Thank you very much. Ms. Barbara Bird Bennett, I'd like to get a meeting with you this week, talk about some of the epidemic of bullying that is still going on in Chicago Public Schools. But more important, my son was a student over at Ogden International School. He was traumatized for years because of a political cover-up. One of the issues that his civil rights were violated. There was dereliction of breach of duty, there was civil rights violation, unlawful discrimination, intimidation, and targeted hate crimes and bullying. But the sad part is how naive the staff of the employees of Chicago Board of Education are educated to hate crimes. Mr. Ruiz made a comment about one of my son's friends that was a victim of a hate crime over at Ogden. And when some of the employees asked my son, are you Jewish or you're not a minority, but there's other type of hate crimes. And he was called a gay boy for years. Staff received written notice that my son is not gay, it needs to stop, and they allowed the situation to go on. Mr. Beebley, you're turning your eyes away, and you knew of the situation. There was written notices given to the staff, and staff ignored our serious complaints. But there's one thing that could come out if the staff could get trained on the various types of hate crimes that are going on. Not just at one school, but I know for a fact it's going on at a lot of other schools. So if there's some positive out of my son's traumatic events, if we could educate everyone so that there's not another child that has to go through what my son has gone through. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to meet with Ms. Bennett maybe sometime this week or not later than next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ligas. Mr. President, that concludes public participation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. At this juncture, I would ask my fellow board members if they have any reactions, reflections, or comments they'd care to make on public participation, or any questions that they might have on open agenda items that we will vote on later.
Dave?
Yes, Henry.
So the issue of swaps by the former congressman came up, and it's not the first time we've had discussion. I believe there were union representatives who raised this issue. I recall some months ago we did make some kind of presentation on the way we wrote our bonds and also on hedging and swaps. I think it would be very good for the board to come forward with a document which gave an accounting of the bonds we've written, the maturities, the interest rates, and the swap agreements, which are all public documents in any case, over the last decade or whatever years would make sense, and even to do some arithmetic, which isn't very difficult, of what the kind of hedging and swap arrangements we did brought us years that it was negative and years that it was positive. But I think for the record, it would be a good idea to present those materials.
Okay, definitely, Henry. There's been extensive analysis done of this work over the last decade. There are people who are talking about writing stories about this, and frankly, we've provided them substantial amounts of information regarding this, but I think maybe you're right, and maybe we can ask Tim and Jenny to both share with the board members the work that has been done in this regard, as well as considering how we should share it publicly, because it is public information and we can do that. I would also point out that collectively with the city, there have been legal analyses, I believe, James, that of these situations, both for the city and for the district, with legal opinions about what our status is in terms of the prospects of any success with what is often being proposed. So all of that is, frankly, most of that's already in the public domain, but maybe we should collect it, as you point out, and put it in there. The analysis that we have has shown that, just to prejudge a little bit, that it's been beneficial to the district over the years to do these transactions, but we should collect all of that and make it publicly available. And as I said, I think we should always be willing to listen to people who might have another point of view, and we are. Maybe there's something we've missed, but frankly, as you point out, there's been a lot of analysis done, both legal and financial, and maybe we should package it up and share it.
David, I have a couple things. First, and we touched on it, but I just think it's important. This would be on the issue around teachers being evaluated and not from last year and not knowing what those evaluations are. That's just unconscionable, and we got to fix it. As somebody who manages, we have this terrific evaluation system that's designed to give feedback so that teachers can improve. For them to be sitting around and be surprised about those evaluations in October from last year is just not acceptable. So I don't care what the vendor is, I don't care what the issue is, we gotta fix that. That's just not effective, so we need to fix that. So that's number one. The other issue is, can somebody speak to, we had at least one person come in, and then there was an article in one of the materials around the quality of the Hancock building. Could somebody speak to that and just tell us, I think somebody, I don't know what, I can't remember what the guy said, but he said it's a terrible building, it's horrible, and, you know, the people on the, kids on the south side aren't getting nice buildings like kids on the north side. That's not my understanding of the condition of the building, so could somebody speak to that?
Tim can speak to that.
I thought so.
Thank you. I'm Tim Cawley, Chief Administrative Officer. The Hancock, I was at Hancock about a month ago. I would say it's a nice old building. It's actually in very good condition. We acquired it from the Archdiocese some number of years ago, and it's a very positive environment. I visited a number of schools that day, so I don't remember its other facilities like gym and auditorium. I seem to recall a decent auditorium and at least a gym. I think the point that the speaker was making is it's not a brand new building, and that's brand new buildings are very, very expensive, and so when in an area where there is some extra capacity, the decision was made that Hancock would be a good school to utilize for it. But there's by no means are we embarrassed about the condition of Hancock. I think it's just the contrast with brand new construction.
Thank you.
But it is true. I've visited the school as well, and I would agree with Tim. I mean, it's a perfectly acceptable building to be conducting a high school program, which we have there today. But like every building, and frankly, I think Tim probably got a phone call from me, because there's always something that can be improved. And Principal Boren actually asked me to help him with this, and I brought something back, and I think we've actually solved one of her problems. I think it relates to the gym somehow, if I remember it correctly. That doesn't mean, as I think Tim points out, that every building we have that's particularly of that age, whether we got it from the Archdiocese or somebody else, can't use refreshing and it up. And so there is money that is going to be available to actually freshen up the building.
Right, and that I knew. I mean, there was a suggestion that the building was less than just older. It was more than old versus new. But thanks, you answered my question.
Yeah, and there's actually a very nice park just north of it that we're going to clean out and make a very positive environment around the building.
Great.
So there's money going in. Can you quickly just talk about some of the priorities with the additional funds that are going into the facility and what are specific plans of improvement?
Yeah, the very specific plans are to invest in more resources that a selective enrollment school like Brooks and Lindblom and others would have, additional labs, a little more technology.
No, he's asking about what you will do at Hancock.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's what he's
So
talking about.
we will bring it up to where other selective enrollment schools have additional, so like Brooks, Lindblom, Walter Payton, Northside, it would have more labs than a typical high school, more technology, more computer resources. Those are the big investments that we make. They're more around the academic programming than the nice-to-haves.
I had one more thing. I just wanted, not for you, Tim, this is just generally, I just wanted to respond to the community people from Mollison. Mollison is literally around the corner from the Urban League. I've spent a fair amount of time there. And I just want to say, I don't want to go through it back point by point, but there were a significant number of factual inaccuracies in what they said. Yes, there are some challenges at the school. It's not overcrowded. And yes, they have some kids that have had some issues, but in fact, overall, the school's doing really well. I will go back because I haven't been there in a while, in a little bit, but I was there earlier this year, and I will go back. But they have an outstanding principal, and it was just, I think it's hard to have a group of people come in and denigrate something that's actually going well, and so I really wanted to just respond to it.
Okay, Henry.
On the overcrowding issue, whether this particular place is overcrowded or not, we do know that we have a significant number of schools that are overcrowded. And then we also know that we have great constraints on our capital budget when we come to bring that forward. But I just want to say for the record, I don't think there's anything more important on our capital budget than dealing with overcrowded. We're just not going to be able to deal with all of it. It's going to be a years-long project. But I hope my fellow board members will agree that when we look at these budgets, that we'll try to address overcrowding issues as the first priority.
Deborah.
Yeah, can I actually probably take Tim, have you go back up there? But just a question is related. Jackson raised the issue of the social impact bond. Can you just address kind of what the CPS's responsibility is, in sort of implementing that program and the upside we see for children in that program? And I just said you, Tim, because it's a financial to some degree.
Yep. No, I'm happy to answer. Social impact bonds are a relatively new concept, and actually they're misnamed a little bit. I wouldn't really call them bonds. They're more of a pay-for-success program. And so in this case, the city has worked through an arrangement with some investors, people who are willing to provide money that the city then sends over to us, to expand child parent centers, so pre-K education of a kind of intense level where the parents are much more involved in the education of their children. This is a proven concept and really helps kids. We're big believers in it. We have a number of very successful child parent centers. So these funds will allow us to expand that program for about 2,600 children over the coming 4 years, and we will expand that. And then the theory is that by investing in children, more children early, those children will need less special supports later on in their schooling. So as you well know, our diverse learner supports can be very, very expensive. So what the logic of this is, by investing in these children early, fewer of them will need what would traditionally be called special ed support, which is very expensive, and the savings from not having to do that will pay back the money that the city is giving us to expand the pre-K. So the bond side of it is the city's transaction with the people who are giving them the money, including the Pritzker Foundation and Northern Trust, who are doing some good work, and they're saying, you know what, we want to bet on this. We want to place a bet that more pre-K will reduce expenses for CPS in the future. And if it doesn't, we don't pay the city back. So we expand pre-K, and if we don't reduce diverse learner supports for these children in the future, we don't pay the money back. So it's entirely a pay-for-success program. Does that help?
I wasn't going to speak to this issue, but since Deborah raised it, I'm very uneasy with this. I'm not against social investment kinds of borrowing, if you like, or revolvers on funds. And I don't question the good motives of any of the people who are putting up the money. I think the measurement issues are very difficult. I think the rate of return is, or call it an interest rate, is high. It's blended. So I will have a very hard time supporting this.
Thanks, Henry.
I do. Two things. A couple of them was already answered. But one of the things, we constantly hear about cuts and funding for schools. But it's been my experience, even when I talk to principals and things, they look to us as the only funding source. And I'm not saying all of them, but quite a few. So my question is, maybe to Denise or whoever, to Barbara, do we have any plans in the future, or are we doing anything to provide workshops for principals and chiefs on partnerships and outside funding? Now, there are definitely some that go out on their own, but we have a lot of new people who don't have a clue about the money that's out there, and it's quite a bit. And when I talk to people, they're like, I didn't know that. So my question is there anything that's going to happen to train chiefs and principals on outside funding and partnerships that can maybe pick up on some of the deficits? That's one. The other thing is, I did have the meeting on the homeless education policy being updated, and I would just like pretty soon to know where it is and what's getting to happen, because it's a problem on both sides. That's it.
Thank you, Dr. Hines. We have actually will be convening a group of principals who do exactly what you're saying very, very well. They've learned how to navigate and not supplant by engaging externals in support of the school, whether financial or through in-kind resources that are needed. And that group will then meet with the my principal consulting group, so we can put together a comprehensive plan for the networks to be able to work with principals for precisely the outcome that you've requested. And I'll keep you abreast of that work.
And I would suggest that those principals who've done it, maybe the chiefs can let them present at some of their meetings, to be talking to their colleagues,
Okay.
About what they're doing. So it's actually coming, from them also. And so that's like a double dose.
Got it.
One of our last speakers noted bullying and specifically noted Ogden, and we did have an incident earlier this last school year, earlier this calendar year, I was going to say. And I know there are things that are going on, so I don't know if Barbara or James could address quickly some of the good things that came out of that and some of the training that is happening, in fact, district-wide.
Certainly, I'll start. Immediately after school closed last year, we went into high gear planning, if you will, for summer training for principals as well as teachers, a component of their training, around the issue of bullying, what constitutes bullying, and some proactive instructional as well as affective opportunities that principals should be using and teachers should be using in their classrooms. That was the first cycle, and then the network chiefs owned it and continue to do that kind of work with as a ongoing informational to our principals. We will make certain that the second semester that we follow up again with the second rotation of that kind of training in partnership with Facing History in Ourselves and
ADL.
The Anti-Defamation League, I'm sorry, went blank. So we've also partnered with the experts in this field to ensure that that kind of training goes on. And
I think also there's a distinction, and the term hate crime which is frankly a legal term,
yes.
and not, there are some legal hurdles you have to get to something to be labeled a hate crime, and for somebody to, like a prosecutor, to be able to act on that. And I think we're also kind of making sure folks understand the distinction as well. Correct, James?
Correct, and that speaker also alluded to a number of matters that are the subject of an administrative legal proceeding that
you're not at liberty to discuss
Right.
openly. So yeah, no, I understand.
Carlos, you have
Yes, I do. We have an item on the agenda regarding some adjustment in numbers to charter schools. And on one side, we said we were going to address charters in areas of overcrowding, and that's covered there. But on the other side, sometimes we have that some charters serve more students that they might have been approved, and I want to make sure we stay away from that practice, that we fund the exact number of students that they said they were going to approve, that we're going to have in the beginning, and that we don't have to make these adjustments, and the students are not hurt because of this.
Okay.
Yeah, we have, that was an inherited risk opportunity that we are in corrective action mode, and that will not occur in the future. Our checks and balances and systems are in place to ensure that exactly what you're requesting will not happen.
Thank you.
If I might, I usually at the conclusion of this always say, we often hear from people about the challenges that they perceive in their schools, and they quote a lot of information, which oftentimes we know is not factually correct. Some of that has gone on again today, as pointed out by Board Member Zopp, and it's always great when we have a board member who's actually been at a school and who can evaluate it. Today, Barbara, there were a few others that, and then there's one, Lincoln, which we hear from constantly. Once again, a lot of the commentary on Lincoln is not factually correct, and the decision-making process was much different than they described. But there were at least a few other schools, Barbara, that I think it would be useful for the management to give the board their perspective on the situations at those schools where we might not actually know the facts. And the three other than Mollison that I made a note of were Orozco, Dever, and Beethoven. You know, there were claims there that, you know, oftentimes you have a set of information we don't have, and if you could help us understand what the real, what your perspective or the management's perspective on the situation is, that would be helpful.
We'll make certain that the schools, and I know Farragut was on there, that we'll make
Yeah,
sure that you get an update.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Farragut was also on my list.
Again,
yeah.
to board member Zoff's comment, we have been in those schools. Denise is now
I know you
handling,
have.
and it's just some of it is not quite accurate, but we will provide an accurate update for the
I
board
know.
members.
I just want to make sure that the public knows that you know, you're on top of it and you're letting us know what's going on. Just two other things I would say. One is, you know, we had the people come to talk about Park and the testing, and obviously to a significant degree with what they said, you know, you and the board members agree. I just want to point out again that we are subject to both state and national regulation, and if they have strong opinions, I hope they're expressing them to the people who oversee what we do. It's great for them to come here and tell us what they think we should do. But again, there are some limitations on what we can do depending on what the state tells us we can do. You know, that is the law, and to some extent what the federal government tells us we can do. So if they want to express themselves, there are other venues, and I would encourage them to go talk to those venues. And then finally, given that we have the advantage of our new honorary student board member, who already cleared up one situation for us.
Thank you.
I'm going to take advantage of you again, Angel, because the woman who was here, Ms. Valdez, I believe her name was, said that there were a couple of problems. Number one was whatever this screen is that goes up and down, which you pointed out is a problem, and Tim fortunately said we're fixing. But she also mentioned the cleanliness of the school. I'd like you to tell us whether you think the school's got a serious cleanliness problem from your perspective.
From my perspective, on certain floors of the school, it does have a problem. If you go into the bathroom yourself, you would see what those problems are, but just to label some. Number one, I think every bathroom, correct me if I'm wrong, every bathroom should have soap.
That's important.
But there's one of the major things, and one of the majors, I think, would have to be part of the management of the people who manage the schools. What would I call it?
Custodians?
Custodians. I would say would have to be part of the custodians and see what part are they doing and what is behalf on their job to see, because I'm.
Has it changed in your, you've been there, and you're now a senior, you've seen a noticeable change in the course of your 4 years?
In my 4 years, yes. I seen in my freshman and sophomore years, I say that it was in a much better condition than it is in now.
Okay.
I can say.
Okay, well, we have to get on that.
We got some work to do.
We got some work to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel.
No problem.
Any other questions or comments?
Just a thought as you were asking about some of these things, which I think is great, and sometimes we're lacking. If there's another mechanism, because there are a lot of things that are said here that we at times get follow-up on, and we're satisfied that we've learned that these issues are being addressed, and sometimes Angel will be addressing some in the future, I'm hoping, others in the future. But is there a formal mechanism we can institute where these get, you know, like the schools that David just went through, that get posted or listed somewhere in the follow-up meeting so that folks see that their time here in addressing and raising issues is taken seriously, and it does something, it has some impact, and there is some follow-up that happens, and either we can say, we addressed your issue, or our determination found something different.
Yeah, we do, and so most of the time you see me with my head down writing, because it's for the follow-up for key management folk to get to those individuals. I made a note to myself, however, Jesse, to have a conversation with the communications department to see if there's a way where those individual cases that are brought get broader publicity, if you will, in terms of its resolution, and to work with communications to figure out how we do that, and obviously with legal to see where the legal boundaries are for making it incredibly
Sometimes they're
public.
personal issues, and they're
Yeah.
personnel or personal issues, and those you can't air publicly.
Correct, but
But
others-
what's going on at a Roscoe or Farragut or something, that everybody who's here and everybody who's not here is entitled to know what we're hearing and what we're doing about it.
Correct.
Other comments? Okay, Dr. Hines, do you have motion?
I move for the passage of motion number 14-1022-M01 and the commencement of a closed session to consider the subject specified by the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll proceed with a roll call. Dr. Beenan?
Yes.
Dr. Hines?
Yes.
Vice President Reese?
Yes.
Board Member Zapp?
Yes.
Dr. Escoitia?
C.
Board Member Quazzo?
Yes.
President Vitale?
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays.
We'll now move into closed session. Let's call the meeting to order again. The meeting of the board is reconvened. Madam Secretary, please proceed with the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will start with items from closed session, and I will begin with settlements. These items do require a vote. First report, workers' compensation, payment for lump sum settlement for Joni Jones Cheney, case numbers 11 WC 17257, 12 WC 33944, and 13 WC 6468. The second report is workers' compensation, payment for lump sum settlement for Marie Rice, case number 13 WC 2079. The third report is the workers' compensation, payment for lump sum settlement for Ruben Santa Cruz, case number 11 WC 16059. Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. I'll proceed with a roll call. Dr. Beenan?
Yes.
Dr. Hines?
Yes.
Vice President Reese?
Yes.
Board Member Zapp?
Yes.
Dr. Escoitia?
Yes.
Board Member Quazzo?
Yes.
President Vitale?
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays. I will continue with one other matter, Mr. President, and this item does require a vote. Appoint Assistant General Counsel, Department of Law, John S. LaMancha. Mr. President, this item does require a vote.
Madam Secretary, if there are no objections from my fellow board members, please apply the last favorable roll call vote.
Thank you. I will continue with items from the Chief Executive Officer, and I will begin with personnel appointments and proceed with warning resolutions, and these items do require a vote. The first report is Principal Contract New ALSC. The second report is Principal Contract Renewal ALSC. I'll proceed with the warning resolutions. Vanessa Alvarado, tenured teacher, James Russell Lowell School. Kenneth Buds, tenured teacher, Gage Park High School. Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
Madam Secretary, if there are no objections, please apply the last favorable roll call vote.
I will continue with items from the board. These items do require a vote, and they are: first report, resolution by the Board of Education of the City of Chicago regarding the dismissal of Robert Osiad, tenured teacher assigned to Schmidt Elementary School. And for the record, I would like to note that this resolution accepts the hearing officer's recommendation. The second report is the resolution approving the Chief Executive Officer's recommendation to dismiss educational support personnel. And the third report is the resolution approving the Chief Executive Officer's recommendation to dismiss probationary appointed teachers. And Mr. President, for the record, I would like to note that on October 17, 2014, the board members and the office of the board received the CEO's recommendation to dismiss probationary appointed teachers pursuant to Board Rule 4-7B2B and 105 ILCS 5/34-84. Her recommendation included the names of the teachers affected and the reasons, and she also noted that the teachers affected will be notified of their dismissal after adoption of the resolution. And Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
Madam Secretary, if there are no objections from my fellow board members, please apply the last favorable roll call vote.
Thank you. And I believe that Vice President Reese has a motion, please.
Yes, I move the board adopt the minutes of the closed session meeting of September 24th, 2014, pursuant to Section 2.06 of the Open Meetings Act. Board members reviewed these minutes and determined that the need for confidentiality continues to exist. Therefore, the minutes of the closed session meeting held on September 24th, 2014 shall be maintained as confidential and not available for public inspection at this time.
May I have a second?
Second.
I'll proceed with a roll call. Dr. Beenan.
Yes.
Dr. Hines.
Yes.
Vice President Reese.
Yes.
Board Member Zapp.
Yes.
Dr. Escoitia.
Yes.
Board Member Quazzo.
Yes.
President Vitale?
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays, and I believe that Board Member Zapp has a motion, please.
I move that the record of proceedings of the regular board meeting of September 24th, 2014, prepared by the board secretary, be approved, and that such records of proceedings be posted on the Chicago Board of Education website in accordance with Section 2.06B of the Open Meetings Act.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. I'll proceed with a roll call. Dr. Beenan?
Yes.
Dr. Hines?
Yes.
Vice President Reese?
Yes.
Board Member Zapp?
Yes.
Dr. Escoitia?
Yes.
Board Member Quazzo?
Yes.
President Vitale?
Yes.
7 ayes, 0 nays. Mr. President, I will now continue with real estate items from executive session. These items do require a vote. The first report is the disposition of bids received for the sale of 125 South Clark Street. The second report is the disposition of bids received for the former Peabody School site located at 1434 and 1444 West Augusta Avenue. And Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
If there are no objections from my fellow board members, please apply the last favorable roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will now continue with the items on the public agenda and only read the board report numbers since the titles and board reports appeared on the public agenda. I will begin with resolutions, and these items do require a vote. I would like to note for the record, Mr. President, that we will be taking a separate vote for RS3. This is the resolution authorizing the execution and delivery by the board of that intergovernmental agreement for that social impact bond. So we'll take that vote separately. So I'll proceed with the resolutions that require a vote at this time, and they are RS1, RS2, and for the record, I would like to note abstentions for Vice President Reese as well as Board Member Quazzo on RS2. Moving on to RS4. And Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
If there are no objections, please apply the last favorable roll call vote.
With the noted abstentions, Mr. President, I will note that.
Sorry.
Thank you. I'll proceed with the communication, and I would like to note that it was draft on agenda and the final will be in the action. And this is the communication regarding the location of our November 19th, 2014 board meeting. As we mentioned earlier, it will be an off-site meeting, and it reads, this is to advise that the regular meeting of the Board of Education scheduled for Wednesday, November 19, 2014 will be held at George Westinghouse College Prep, 3223 West Franklin Boulevard, and it will be held in the auditorium. The board meeting will begin at 4:30 p.m. For the November 19, 2014 board meeting, advanced registration to speak and observe will be available beginning Monday, November 10th at 8 a.m. and will close on Monday, November 17th at 5 p.m. due to the Veterans Day holiday on Tuesday, November 11th, or until all slots are filled. You can advance register during the registration period by the following methods, either online, by phone, or in person. And the public participation segment of the meeting will begin as indicated on the board meeting agenda. And we will proceed for no more than the 60 registered speakers. I will now continue, Mr. President, with additional items that do require a vote, and they are EX1, EX2, and EX3. I would like to note for the record that that board report has been revised and the final will be in the action, and that's to revise the attendance boundaries for the John Hancock Preparatory High School, Maria Sklodowska-Curie Metropolitan High School, Gordon Hubbard High School, and the Eric Solorio Academy High School. Moving on to EX4, OP1. For the record, Mr. President, I would like to note an abstention for Vice President Reese. We then have PR1, PR2. On PR3, I would like to note for the record abstentions for Vice President Reese as well as Dr. Beenan on PR3. We have PR4. On PR5, for the record, I would like to note abstentions for Vice President Reese and Dr. Beenan on PR5. PR6. On PR7, I would like to note for the record abstentions for Vice President Reese as well as Dr. Beenan on PR7. Moving on to PR8, for the record, I would like to note an abstention for Vice President Reese on PR8. We then have PR9, PR10, PR11, 12, and PR13. And Mr. President, these items do require a vote.
Madam Secretary, if there are no objections from my fellow board members, please apply the last favorable roll call vote with the noted abstention.
Thank you, Mr. President. And at this time, Mr. President, we will proceed with the separate vote on the RS3 matter. And just to state for the record, this is the resolution authorizing the execution and delivery by the Board of Education of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago to support the expansion of the CPS Pre-Kindergarten Child Parent Center program. And Mr. President, this item does require a vote.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I will proceed with a roll call. Dr. Beenan.
No.
Dr. Hines.
Abstain.
Vice President Reese.
Yes.
Board Member Zapp.
Yes.
Dr. Escoitia.
Yes.
Board Member Quazzo.
Yes. Yes.
President Vitale.
Yes.
For the record, I would like to note 5 ayes, 1 nay, and 1 abstention. This item has been adopted by the board. I will continue, Mr. President, with additional items on the public agenda that do not require a vote, and they are EX5 and AR1. And Mr. President, these items just need to be accepted by the board.
Madam Secretary, please mark received and file.
Thank you, Mr. President, and there are no further items on the public agenda.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.